And greetings. Happy Thursday. Welcome to the Steve Deace Show here, live and on demand on BlazeTV, radio and podcast. I am Steve Deace. I am here in Dallas within the amazing studios we have here at BlazeTV, radio and podcast. Todd and Aaron are back there in Des Moines at our slightly less amazing studio that the Blaze built for us there. Gentlemen, you know, I have a policy after we had that historic blizzard in 2009 where I had to spend 3 nights at the local radio station and could not get home, to never complain about heat again. So this is not a complaint. I just want to note, and I want to congratulate the great state of Texas. This morning on my morning walk, I've been alive. It'll be 51 years here in almost exactly a month. That was the toastiest morning walk of my lifetime. So congratulations to Texas. You did it. You did it. I'm not complaining. No, I'm praising. I'm praising the state of Texas for giving me the toastiest morning walk I've ever had. Gentlemen, how are you?
Turn the air conditioning off and let's see how that goes.
Oh, that's not. Why don't you first, Erzin? You first.
Oh, sure. Sure, you should come on over. That's why you don't come over. There's no way. Erzin won't have the air conditioning.
That is correct. Yeah, that is correct. Yes. We are brought to you by our friends over at First Cup Coffee Company. They have a flavor for every freedom-loving American. You can get 10% off when you go to firstcup.com and use the promo code DACE. That's firstcup.com. Promo code DACE for 10% off. They'll ship it to you within days of being roasted because freshness is kind of their thing. And if you subscribe, you'll get an additional 10% off as well at firstcup.com, promo code DACE. That's firstcup.com, promo code DACE. And in case you had forgotten and you want to know, what am I doing down here in Dallas right now? Well, tonight we have our first and I think likely only debate between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. It'll be tonight. And I can't verify it 100%, but I have researched it. I cannot find in American history a general election debate that took place earlier than this. So unless someone can prove it to me, and I'm guessing if it's possible, it'll happen in my inbox in 5 minutes because there's like a dozen of you that if I get one thing wrong, one pronunciation or statistic wrong or reference that's not 100%, you make sure to correct me. And I dig that about you, right? You guys never hear me complain about those people privately, do you? You hear me praise them. In fact, I love those guys, right? I love them.
Sure.
Right? Yeah, indeed. So I believe it is the earliest presidential debate in American history. And we're going to have full coverage of it here tonight at The Blaze. You don't want to miss it. We'll have a pre-debate event starting at 7:30 Eastern. And then we're going to go live for a full hour as soon as the debate concludes. And we have a huge cast down here. Our good friend Jill Savage, our good friend Sarah Gonzalez, Delano Squires, who's been on our show numerous times, will be with us here tonight. Ron McIntyre's here for this as well. So looking forward to this tonight. Make sure you go to blazetv.com/debate to subscribe so you don't miss any of this coverage of the debate here tonight. blazetv.com/debate. That's blazetv.com/debate. And use the code debate so that you get a big discount, $30 off your annual subscription to the Blaze. $30 off at blazetv.com/debate with the promo code debate. All right, coming up on the show today, we're going to continue Theology Thursday, our series on Romans. This is the end of the month, so we'll get into some of the feedback that you guys have sent us. I've got one thing from last week I want to go back from one of the sections of chapter 2 that we were attempting to discuss a week ago. And I want to make sure that there's a point there in that scripture that is so prevalent for the era in which we live in today that I want to make sure that we stressed it enough. And then we'll hear some of your feedback on what you think we've discussed so far on our Roman study. At the bottom of the hour, so yesterday the Supreme Court told us, it's all clear. The Biden White House, leading up to the election, go ahead and get together with your friends over there in Silicon Valley and just, do a Hunter Biden laptop memory hole every week if you want. Just ban a Jay Bhattacharya and an Aaron Kheriaty and just do that every week if you want to do it. It's all clear. First Amendment, dead as a doornail. All right, we're going to take it out back right here in broad daylight and just absolutely just shoot it right in the mouth, which is what they did. Well, now today we're going to tell you a story about a Moms for Liberty activist who's being sued by her school district for criticizing their policies. You see how this works? And I don't and stop with your Frenchian. It was procedure, and they couldn't show any harm. No. Constitution doesn't say, hey, the government can't censor unless it can show nobody was harmed by it. The censorship's the harm, fools. The censorship is the harm. It is literal bile into the ecosystem of America. It's un-American. No. Not to mention, like I asked yesterday, can someone tell me what standing the Freedom from Religion Foundation based in Wisconsin will have to sue Louisiana over the Ten Commandments? You guys ever notice this stuff only works one way? And just to prove this point, we didn't even, this interview's been scheduled for a bit.
Correct.
Didn't even plan this out like this. We had no idea when this Murtha, Missouri ruling was going to come down. But the back-to-back of this, Todd, yesterday, the feds the Republican justices said to a Democrat administration, by all means, conspire with the largest platforms in this country to censor your political opposition. And here we are the next day, and here's a Moms for Liberty activist being sued for criticizing with her speech, being sued for criticizing the policies of her school district.
Probably just a coincidence.
Yeah, probably not, indeed. But we'll get to all of that after we begin, as we always do, with Aaron's rundown of what happened while we were away.
No montage today, remember?
I know.
Okay.
I was seeing if you remembered.
I do. You ready for this?
Okay. I am. I'm ready for this. So how do you want to set this up?
Well, we probably should have talked about this off the air, but we can just go right to it.
That would have helped.
Yeah.
That would have helped. Well, let's tell the audience what they're about to see. All right? See, I thought maybe you'd have an intro or something ready to go, but it's okay that you didn't, and I didn't ask. So we're both at fault, so we're both fired. So we got together as a staff last week. I'm frustrated. I saw, I don't know if you guys probably didn't. Out of curiosity, I read Nate Silver's election analysis this morning before the show. And it's his first projection of what he thinks is going to happen. And right now, he is giving Joe Biden slight odds to win the Electoral College, and he has Donald Trump at 65% to win the Electoral College. So that's not good enough for me. I like to know how people got to their conclusions, right? But even when it's news I want to hear, I still don't kind of trust it, okay? So I read his entire report, man, and even by my writing standards, I thought, this is long. So he is starting with the same, it's close to the same. He has Joe Biden at 259 Electoral College votes. If you go back to the latest map I produced for you guys on Tuesday in the overtime, 19 weeks out, I have Biden at 250. So they're relatively close. And so I'm thinking to myself, okay, so him and I are starting from a pretty similar spot. And yet he's got Trump with much higher odds of winning the Electoral College than I do. And so I keep reading his report. Well, he thinks basically Trump is going to win 2 out of these 3, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Not 1. Now, he's got to win 1 to get to 270. But he thinks Trump's going to win 2. Trump would have to win 2 of those 3 to keep Biden at 250 Electoral College votes. He would have to. If you do the math, it doesn't work any other way. And well, I shouldn't say that. If Biden were to steal like a North Carolina or a Georgia again, there's a path there, okay? But I can't foresee a scenario where Joe Biden wins Georgia again and Donald Trump wins Michigan. Can you guys see that happening? I can't see that happening.
No.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Those kind of things, you have to be congruent together. I think Trump could win them both, I think. He could lose them both, but I can't see him winning Georgia or winning Michigan and losing Georgia. I see him winning Georgia and losing Michigan, but not that other way. And so therefore, he's just not accounting for any level of fortification effort. And in his report, Silver says it's kind of over-exaggerated how much Democrats overperformed the polls in 2022. Really? Kind of exaggerating. You mean like the Real Clear Politics polling average that Gretchen Whitmer up by 1 point the day of the election in 2022? And she won by 10? That strike you guys as it's slightly exaggerated how much Democrats overperformed the polls, guys? 9 points on game day, just a bit. And that's just, why do I keep pointing that? That's one of the states that he is claiming he thinks Trump's going to win, or at least 2 of those 3. I am concerned. I think tonight is a win-win for Democrats. I think if they're as sinister as we all think they are, and they are, they can't lose. Joe Biden comes in here tonight, gets his Dr. Feelgood, survives. They don't do another one of these. They take their ball and go home. He face plants, begins quoting the Iliad, something. I don't know. All right. And they've got 2 months to, plan out their nominating convention, as we've talked about on this show, and I talked about with Glenn Beck here on the Blaze earlier this morning. So to me, now is when you've got to be banking. You should be banking points. Like, you can't count on the fact that left-leaning independents are just going to continue to be like, man, this guy's too old. Because they're not people that traditionally vote for you. I would much rather win over people that I can positively get to vote for me as a strategy than try to negatively plan on people who don't like me not showing up. Right? Like if I'm playing a great football team, I can't come up with a game plan that will just hope. Let's hope, guys, they turn the ball over 4 times and it's random. I'm going to have a game plan where I'm going to accentuate my strengths. And I'm frustrated with the messaging. I don't even know what the message is. I don't know what the Trump campaign message is, and it's almost July. I have no idea what the message is. They've raised all this money. I don't know. You should be seeing a Trump pop-up on digital every time you're on a website, and you don't. Where's it all at? So we got frustrated, and by we, I mean me. And when I get frustrated, that usually means Todd and Aaron have to do more work. All right. That's usually what it means. So we got together about a week and a half ago and came up with, hey, you know what? Let's not just curse the darkness here. We kind of like to do things. Urzin's always yelling at you, do something. All right. So let's just not sit here and lament, boy, I wish we had a message. I wish there was a message. Wish they had a message. Right? I don't want to sit here at the time of the game where we've got some momentum and wish at the end that we had padded our lead more to withstand what is likely coming. Especially the censorship complex. Man, when we were talking about this last week, the censorship complex wasn't even unleashed yet. Now think of how more relevant what we're talking about now even is now. So now Hunter Biden laptop every week if you want. Ban people everywhere every week if you want. On top of everything else we know they're going to do and the fortification efforts we know they have. I think it's very important to have a message, a winning message. And a message that reaches the people that most mobilizes the people most likely to vote for you, and then reaches the people that are the next likely to vote for you. So along those lines, and then the third thing is we wanted to come up with something that we thought they might actually do, right? I mean, it wouldn't make sense to kind of put my voice in their campaign. So this is, in terms of tone and presentation, this is, like I gave it to our executive producer here at the Blaze, Ricky, this morning to let her see it. She's like, this looks exactly like something that, Trump's team and his mean people would do. Well, okay. So essentially, I tried to come up with something that I thought they would realistically do and have Aaron produce something for us that you could see them doing, but that we thought would also, though, be effective, had an effective message. So to that end, if we were running the Trump campaign right now on the eve of the first and maybe only presidential debate, this is the 60-second commercial that you would be seeing on every network and every digital, every YouTube, every time. This is what we'd be hammering home right now.
It's quite simple, folks. We just can't afford 4 more years of this.
Hunter's my heart. He's the most honorable, decent person I know.
Hunter Biden has been found guilty on all counts in his federal trial in Wilmington, Delaware.
He's the most honorable, decent person I know.
At least Biden used to be able to talk. Now he can't even do that.
After I signed the PAC Act,
Secretary, puts his dime, all it is there to make sure it may be precise. Tremendous amount of things you can do. 21st century results.
The Ministry of Coburn, daughter of Ireland. You can tell that's a Freudian slip. I'm thinking of home. The daughter of Iceland.
It's quite simple, folks. We just can't afford 4 more years of this.
I'm not Donald Trump, and he didn't approve this message, but he should.
First of all, that AI Donald Trump voice is creepily accurate. And if you weren't yet already concerned about what they're going to do with AI in the very immediate future, you should be after hearing that. Holy cow, it's like we got Trump to voice that thing. It was so on the money. Now, if you're listening to the podcast, that ad, you need to go and see it. This is meant to be a visual presentation. All right. And it'll be up on all of our social media channels here today. So make sure you go and find it to get the full brunt, because what you can't hear or see while you're hearing Biden stammer and stutter around, like I just did, what you can't see is there's a lower third going at the bottom of the screen. As you're watching Biden stutter, stammer, fall, you're watching Obama have to take him by the hand and lead him off the stage. As you're watching these things, there's a lower third at the bottom of the screen, and it's showing you how much the cost of literally everything has gone up since Joe Biden became president. To hammer home, to me, this is the theme. We just can't afford 4 more years of this. That's just the thing. I mean, Trump already ripped off Reagan's Make America Great Again. I suppose you could just rip off, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? And I'd be fine with that too. But this is kind of my way of wording that, in kind of a Trumpian way. We just can't afford 4 more years of this. To me, there needs to be a message. If the candidate, and Glenn and I were talking about this morning, I've seen him, as many years ago, but I've seen him in human settings practice empathy. You just don't see it from his public persona very often, if at all. So if the candidate is incapable of doing this in his persona, then there needs to be a message that gives people who are sitting in these suburbs, guys, where the 3 of us live, who said we couldn't have any more mean tweets, so we had to surrender the country to the spirit of the age. There needs to be a message that gives them an off-ramp. If the candidate is not going to provide them an off-ramp, if you know what I mean, by giving them, like at the debate tonight, a moment where he looks in the camera and he demonstrates some level of empathy to show that's a major quality of leadership that his persona lacks most, if not all the time. If he's not capable or willing to do that, and let's face it, as we get older, Todd, you and I are in our 50s now, we're hitting that age where we're like, I've learned enough, I don't want to learn anymore, let alone 78, all right? And if you're 78 and you've been as wealthy and successful by worldly standards as Trump has been, you probably think, I don't need to, learn a new persona trick. Fine, cool. Then you need to come up with a message that gives these people an off-ramp. And to me, that's the best message. Set it all aside. All right. Some tweet Trump sent in 2009 about Rosie O'Donnell you don't like and can't remember. Who cares? All right. Set all that aside. Cool. All right. We just can't afford 4 more years of this. We just can't. This can't go on. Everything's more expensive. The president has dementia. He can't talk and he can't walk. We can't do this anymore. We can't do another 4 years of this. We just can't afford this. That's it. And just leave it there. And I think, Aaron, your presentation, and again, folks, you got to see it visually to get the full brunt of it. Because I think it packs a wallop. I have sent it to several people I know in the last 24 hours, from Mark Levin to Glenn Beck to David Limbaugh and other people, even to a couple of people I know that work within the Trump sphere. And mostly, frankly, unanimously rave reviews about this. And at least at the message part, for sure. And the way that Aaron pulls off that dichotomy there. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this message and the way it's articulated here in what we've produced?
Well, Steve, I was just a couple of days ago talking to a mutual friend of ours. I know him because you introduced me to him, but he's now running for state senate, and we were talking about the logistics of running in his particular district and the level of genuine awareness about who even represents him, what's going on. And I said, your real opponent is people's ignorance and or their comfort. It's not this guy. And so you got to find the message, particularly as a native of that area, that gets people, you know these people better than anybody else, to see the unavoidable. Because we have all kinds of ways now to somehow bury our heads and not see the unavoidable. This is the best shot, I agree with you, to get people, if they see something like this, to just give them the basic shake of, that's like, let's use pop culture, the Avengers, when Hawkeye is in his trance and Scarlett Johansson punches him in the head, and that's what wakes him up. That's what is needed here. And there's all kinds of reasons. People just don't, on the issues, there's all kinds of issues that they don't want to go there. This one does seem to have the best chance to be just an I can think a lot of things about a lot of other things, have a lot of other preferences, but there's no way, unless we reverse it, this is like an unavoidable going off a cliff. So I think that's the important way to think about messaging these days. It's got people want to be in a trance, and you have to show them the thing that might defy previous political instincts of messaging, and just make the thing that is the unavoidable gut punch that everybody's racing to avoid, somehow, some way, make them swallow the pill. I think this is the best shot.
Yeah, I think in terms of the without excuseness, if you want to put it that way, I think the debate is probably the best opportunity, but that's not something that you can just force to happen. I mean, you can't force Joe Biden to poop his pants or to start waxing prose about the finer points of lampshades in the middle of talking about thermonuclear war. You can't force a moment like that. I think that would be the best moment to just put the entire country, however many tens of millions of people tune in, leave them with no excuse, shove it in their face and say, this is what you're going to vote for. This is what you voted for before. Okay, you're without excuse now. Mm-hmm. I think the debate is the best opportunity for that. However, did you see this morning, just literally as we got on the air, it was released a few hours ago. I just saw it as we got on the air. The Trump campaign actually does have a new ad out, and this is usually how I set up jokes. There's no punchline here. It is actually a new 30-second ad that's apparently going to air after the debate tonight. Just basically doing channeling kind of the same message that we attempted to articulate in that little 60-second spot. And it focuses as much on Kamala Harris as it does Joe Biden. It features some of the same clips you just saw there of Biden stumbling, falling over, having Jill Biden helping him with his jacket, things like that. And then it ends with the Biden-Harris logo. And then the Harris part of the logo kind of butts the Biden out of the way. And it's got a clip of her laughing. So I thought, I think that's maybe they're getting that. Maybe they're getting that message as well over at the Trump campaign.
All right, Aaron, do me a favor, re-rack that spot, our spot, because I want to run it again here in a couple of minutes right before the break, okay? And give me a thumbs up when you've got it ready to play it again. All right, you do. All right, so now that you guys know the background of what we were going for when we wrote this script and when we produced this and came up with the visual approach that you see, and in some respects, Todd and Aaron are a part of the very target audience I'm talking about. I mean, Todd, when you first saw this ad, all right, like when you left the show yesterday after Trump's justices basically helped them nuke the Supreme Court, you might have been, if the election were yesterday, you weren't voting Trump yesterday. You're like, what the hell's the point? If this is what I'm getting, right? That's probably pretty close to where you were when you walked out of here yesterday. Okay,
you're describing every day of mine as I think through this back and forth. Yes.
Okay, by the evening, right? By the evening when Aaron and I finished this ad, then showed you the final product, okay? When we showed it to you that same evening, you walked out of here, you're like, even vinegar's not soothing me. By the evening, when we showed you this, your initial reaction was what?
Well, I'm that guy, too, that I just got done talking about how you have to wake up. I don't want to vote for Donald Trump. This is something I've said before. For any number of reasons. So, and there's a lot of people like that for any number of reasons. But when I to your exact point, Steve, I am often on a daily, certainly weekly basis, simply confronted with that pill where I think I have to. And that's what this ad does. It makes you swallow the pill of the unavoidable. Now, again, I'll tell you when I've made my definitive choice. But this is the kind of thing you have to show all kinds of people, because if I'm having that issue, I know Aaron's having that issue, all kinds of other people are having that issue. You've got to narrow the focus on something that is simultaneously simple and existential.
So what I want you guys to do, as I tell you about our friends over at Constitution Wealth, is close your eyes for a minute and listen to what Constitution Wealth has to say. And I want you to think of this person in your life that should be actively participating in getting rid of this regime. And then we're going to play the ad again here in a moment and see if this is something that would cause them to say, okay, well, you're right. We just can't afford another 4 years of this. Here's what the other thing you can't afford to do either, and that's to continue to use all this wealth you store up to fund people who hate you. I mean, if you're one of those people that is actively seeking to not give money to people who hate you in the marketplace, why not do the same thing with your portfolio, retirement investments, etc.? Whether it's ESG, DEI, or any of these other pagan woke schemes, Constitution Wealth can help you to divest from them and to put to maybe your most potent weapon in the culture war, your money, to work for the cause. So reduce your investments in the spirit of the age and help build the parallel economy at the same time by working with an advisor who shares your patriotic values. Why work with anybody else? Go to constitutionwealth.com/blaze. Sign up for a free consultation today. That's constitutionwealth.com/blaze. All right, so think about that person again, or even a group of people you know in your family, work, sector, sphere of influence, and you're like, okay, and now we made this ad for them. Watch it, listen to it again, and see if it would hit home with them.
It's quite simple, folks. We just can't afford 4 more years of this.
Honors my heart. He's the most honorable, decent person I know.
Hunter Biden has been found guilty on all counts in his federal trial in Wilmington, Delaware.
He's the most honorable, decent person I know.
At least Biden used to be able to talk. Now he can't even do that.
After I signed the PAC Act, Secretary, puts his dimes, all it is there to make sure, it may be precise, tremendous amount of things you can do. 21st century results.
The Ministry of Coburn, daughter of Ireland. You can tell that's a 40 slip. I'm thinking of home. The daughter of Iceland.
It's quite simple, folks. We just can't afford 4 more years of this.
I'm not Donald Trump, and he didn't approve this message, but he should.
Final thoughts on second viewing.
Donald Trump, he's going to answer the questions. He's a big boy, and it shouldn't be incumbent upon all of us to constantly be doing all the heavy lifting. This is the right message, but at some point he has to make it. And so, listen, by no means if you simply decide, even if it's true that something has to be done, we can't afford it. If Trump won't make this, and you decide, well, I can't do it. I get that too, because really, so much is at stake. If you cannot go out of your way to make this plain to people, that's not only political malfeasance, but it's simply not even trying.
That's
exactly
what we try
where
to do,
I
Aaron,
am.
is make it plain to people.
Yeah, that's exactly where I am. What Todd just articulated them. I want him.
Yes.
Donald Trump, him, not Rando 69 on X. I want him to make that case.
Absolutely.
Nobody else.
All right, we'll come back and tell you about this incredible story out of the state of Wisconsin next. Hey, remember back in the day when you could be more active, before that chronic pain took over? Now, clinical pain is something that requires professional medical care. Chronic pain can as well, but a lot of times it's the result from too much inflammation in your joints. And that's where that lingering achiness, stiffness, that just seemingly you can't get rid of, that's where it comes from. And you can take pain meds and they can help you mask the pain, but sometimes they come with side effects. So one day some doctors got together and said, what if we could create a supplement that would go after the inflammation in the body that was drug-free, that didn't come with any side effect risk, and see if that might actually do the trick by attacking the inflammation itself and not just masking the pain. And that thing they came up with, that supplement, is called Relief Factor. Now, it may not work. We're not promising you the world here, okay? But over the years, over 1 million people have taken the 3-week quick start for just $20 and have seen such great results that 70% of them, right around there, have ended up sticking around long term because of the results they saw in 3 weeks or less. So what do you got to lose for $20? See if you don't see a difference in your pain level in 3 weeks or less when you go to relieffactor.com. Take advantage of the 3-week quick start at relieffactor.com. So the timing of this, as we were just talking about, teasing it at the top of the show, is just serendipitous, providential, whatever term you want to use, but it's something. All right. So yesterday, the Supreme Court just gives an all clear to just all out censorship industrial complex from the White House. Just go ahead, feel free to coercively conspire with your Silicon Valley pals and shut down stories that you want, and go after and shut down the engagements of people who say things you don't like. Just took the First Amendment, just took it right out there in broad daylight, and just shot it right there on camera. Now, we had scheduled this interview in advance of that ruling, not even knowing when that Murtha, Missouri ruling was going to come down. But the timing of that story yesterday with the timing of this story today is something else. All right, so let's get the details on this story. Scarlett Johnson is with Moms for Liberty there in Wisconsin, and her attorney, Luke Berg, is here as well. They join us here on The Blaze. It's a pleasure to have both of you guys with us. How are you? Scarlett first, welcome to the show.
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
You bet.
Thanks for having us.
Then, Luke, I'm going to start. Look, I'm actually going to start with you, because I want to go to the dichotomy that I just articulated for the audience. For you as an attorney, your thoughts on that contrast of these two events that I just drew for them and what they ultimately mean. Because we'll get into the details of this story in a second, but it's effectively your client is being sued for politically criticizing the behaviors of her school district. Okay, I mean, this is a clear free speech case, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I just think this is a trend that we're seeing on the left, right, repeatedly, which is we silence viewpoints we disagree with. We're trying to shut down speech, shut down opinions that we disagree with, and we're going to use any tool and vehicle we can to do that. And the case you talked about yesterday, that's one way that the left is trying to do that. The case with Scarlett that we're about to talk about is another. So I just think this is happening everywhere, and it's unfortunate to see, and so we need to fight back against it anywhere and everywhere it crops up.
All right, so Scarlett, let's go to you. Tell us your story. What happened?
Oh my gosh, my story. Well, I want to say that I inherited a world that had defeated communism, and look at where we're at now. It's a really sad state of affairs. My journey, I call myself an accidental activist, and my journey began, like so many of us in Moms for Liberty, with the COVID shutdowns and the tragedy that happened to our children. I got a peek behind the curtain of education and what was going on in classrooms because of virtual learning. And there was a window that was provided to us in which we could see the true nature of these bureaucracies and of the people that were in charge of our children's education. And we did not like what we were seeing. And that caused me, for the first time, to start to attend school board meetings, to understand what they were all about, to speak at school board meetings, to do whatever I could to open schools. I fought for everything. I fought to open up sports. I fought to open up schools and classrooms. I fought when the schools were open and our classrooms looked like juvenile detention centers. I fought masking. I fought everything for my kids. I fought the way that my children were treated like a vector for disease and not a precious soul. I fought the way that my district, and like so many other school districts in Wisconsin, prioritized the safety of adults rather than the health and well-being of children. And in doing so, there are a lot of folks that did not like me in my school district, especially when I fought to recall 4 school board members and successfully recalled them. I eventually lost my election, but it became national news, and my district had to deal with a lot of things that made them uncomfortable. Enter George Floyd. And after the death of George Floyd, my district hired equity consultants to provide district-wide training sessions to talk about race with all community members and parents. And during those teachings, I started to hear buzzwords like equity, pedagogy, Ibram X. Kendi, Paulo Freire, all of that. And I did my research like so many moms did. And we discovered that we had in our district an equity consultant that was skilled in equity promotion, a social justice coordinator. And online, I expressed my opinion about such a position, and that particularly as a Puerto Rican woman who was raised in poverty, came from nothing and clawed my way out of poverty. My dad's a Marine. I'm grateful every day to be an American. I love my country, and I've raised my 5 children to love this country. But my husband is white, and I disapproved of a message where my kids were going to school and told that because their dad is white, he is inherently evil. And because my skin is brown, I am inherently a victim. And I have no agency over my life. And that message, that identity politics, I don't agree with. And it also doesn't work in education. There has been massive decline across all areas by every metric since we have become more what I would call woke. And I expressed my opinions about such a position, and that I thought it was a waste of taxpayer dollars, classroom time, and that it just wasn't any good for our district. And I made those criticisms against my school district.
Okay. Luke, that just sounds like everyday political activism to me. I mean, Scarlett, did you threaten anybody? I mean, did you send some, the people to throw eggs at any member of the school board's house and a window got broken, or, a rock went into a window instead and hurt somebody? Anything like that occur? These are the facts on the ground. That's it.
Now, while many of those things happened to me in my activism, death threats.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Children, and I had to get cameras all over my house. Yes. While terrible things happened to me, no, I never did anything like that.
So, look, I work in an industry where things get said about me all the time. Okay. And many of them aren't true. We're told the threshold for proving defamation is so high, particularly if you're any form of a public figure, that it's really just not even worth it. Okay, so what did she do here that would meet any threshold of defamation, other than just have a contrary political opinion and then work within the actual framework of exercising your voice politically in order to act on it? What's the act? What's the defamatory act here, Luke?
Well, the answer is nothing. I mean, when I read her posts, when I first was reviewing this case, I had the same reaction that you did, right? I've seen thousands, there's probably millions of posts just like this all the time. And this is not remotely close to anything that could be actionable as defamation. So the basic rule for people to be aware of is a statement has to be false to be actionable as defamation. It doesn't matter if it paints you in a bad light if it's true. And the sort of second order rule is it has to be the kind of thing that can be proved false. So you have to be able to objectively show that it is false. So, somebody might think I have bad hair and say, you have bad hair. Well, that's an opinion you can have, and other people might disagree. That's not the kind of thing that can be proved true or false. And so it's not actionable as defamation. And so courts around the country regularly throw out defamation lawsuits for the sort of name calling and the flourishing words that people use online. The particular posts that we're talking about here are pretty benign as it goes, right? She just criticized her school district for having a social justice coordinator. And then her last statement was something like, just what we need, more woke women, right? And so that is what this person sued for defamation over. And her attorney in the trial court moved to dismiss, made all the right arguments. The case should have been promptly dismissed, but instead, the trial judge said, nope, we're going to have a trial on whether this person is woke or not. And, as a lawyer, that's incoherent. I don't even know how you go about having a trial. Like, how do you prove whether a person is woke or not, right? If calling somebody woke is the kind of thing that is actionable for defamation, we would have thousands of these lawsuits. Steve, I'm sure you've used the word woke a few times in your public advocacy.
Well, I mean, isn't this a tacit admission that the word woke is bad?
Well,
it would only be defaming. It would only be defaming if indeed it's a negative term. I mean, what would be if you said, "Hey, great, another enlightened individual on the school board," you wouldn't be getting sued, right? So, I mean, if you're getting sued for using the term woke, the implication here, at least the tacit implication, if not the explicit one, is that the term woke is bad.
Right. That's sort of the funny irony of this case, right? The left used to wear that as a badge of honor. And now we've sort of flipped the script on that word. And so now we're going to get, defamation lawsuits over it because nobody wants to be labeled as woke, apparently.
So I honestly, and Scarlett, I've seen a lot of your stuff on social media. It's some of the smartest social commentary I've seen come out of your organization. Okay. This is one of the dumbest stories I've ever covered in the history of my career, is this story right here. It is absolutely... Now, I'm sure when it's you're the one being sued, it ain't dumb to you, okay? But here from the outside looking in, this is one of the dumbest stories I've ever seen. This is like a Mother Jones fever dream that they would not even publish because it would be something that, as much as they'd love to do it, they know it would never happen, and yet it is actually occurring. I don't even know how to even react to this.
The process is the punishment.
Yes.
For 4 years, they have not been able to silence me. They have tried every means possible, and I'm still standing. And I think that's the message that I try to spread all throughout Wisconsin when I'm talking to folks, that don't be afraid of this paper tiger. You have to stand. So lawfare is a tool that's being used to stop me from expressing my opinion, because there's a lot of things that I'm afraid of almost nothing, but bankrupting my family, that's kind of scary. Spending hundreds of thousands of dollars defending myself before a jury trial, Steve, it would be a jury trial. I would go to a jury trial for woke.
I just...
Yeah, right. and that's really the key.
I've got like in 90 seconds here, Luke. Sum up what's going to happen here and where this is going to go from here for us.
Yeah, so we basically, on behalf of Scarlett, asked to have an early appeal, so to take this issue, the legal issue, up on appeal so that she can avoid a jury trial. And I think the point she just made, that the process is the punishment, is the key point. Normally, you don't get an appeal until after a trial. She has to go through that. That's an enormous cost, time-wise, money-wise, emotion-wise. And so what we're hoping to do is take the appeal up and just have the court say, look, this is not actionable, and dismiss the case. And we're optimistic. The court granted our appeal, so now we're briefing and arguing the merits of the appeal. But we're very optimistic that we'll win ultimately, and then she can not have to worry about this anymore and continue her advocacy.
This is straight up lawfare, no question about it. and an attempt to just use the process, as Scarlett said, to punish her for her views. The process is the punishment indeed. Well, keep us abreast of how this goes, and I don't know what to even say other than, I guess, congrats that you made them stoop to this level, okay, to come at you. All right, keep it up, I guess. All right, thank you, Scarlett and Luke. Thank you, both of you.
Don't be mad about that.
Yeah, that's true. Yes, yeah. Maybe you'll get sued for being on this show, I guess. I don't know. All right, thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Todd and Aaron, straight up, guys, it's one of the dumbest stories I've ever covered in my career. That's like not intentionally dumb, okay?
What you just said there actually is a perfect point. That's not rhetorical flourish. Why not just sue her for being on our show? What's the difference here?
I know.
You're making a statement of some kind of opinion just by coming on this show. I mean, I've had the good fortune meeting her at last year at this time when she was here in Des Moines. Incredibly nice guy, as you said, online, super smart, super diligent, puts in the time, puts in the work, isn't just popping off. She's a threat. This is my point. If you do, and if it's not just her, and it probably is, if you all surround her with the same level, it's not activism, it's being a citizen. They can't pick her off like this. This is the problem. Everybody's got to stop just having opinions. They've got to do.
Yeah, I think we make a mistake in the thought that stupid and evil are not closely related. They kind of are, especially in a late stage republic. Everything declines, including just pernicious evil. So yeah, it's stupid, but it's evil nonetheless. What is it? Erzin's razors, it's just stupid or something like that. Aaron's razor, it's just demonic, bro. It's kind of the same thing. So yeah, it's dumb from the outside looking in. I feel for Scarlett. I mean, this has got to be loads of stress. All you're trying to do, she's just trying to have a say in her kids' education. That's a crime now. That's what the real message is here. They want you to know that they're trying to criminalize actually being a parent. That's the message. And yeah, from the outside looking in, this type of lawsuit for the details about it, what it looks like, yeah, it's really stupid. But the message they're trying to get across nonetheless is evil.
Amen. Theology Thursday is next and needed. Stay tuned. All right, we are back here with Hour 2, live and on demand on Blaze TV, radio, and podcast. I am Steve Deace. He's Todd Erzin. He's Aaron McIntyre. They're back in Des Moines. I am here in Dallas getting ready for the Blaze's debate coverage tonight, starting at 7:30 Eastern. And then we'll watch the debate with you. We'll be chatting and commenting within the commentary feedback section on the Blaze TV app tonight with you. And then we'll be live after the debate with our commentary as well. Let us know what you think about what we think via the stevedeace.com inbox. You can take advantage of that by emailing the program, steve@stevedeace.com. That's DEACE. Like us on Facebook, MeWe, and Gab. You can follow me at Steve Deace Show on Twitter, Getter, Instagram, and TikTok. If you listen to the podcast version, if you wouldn't mind, leave us a 5-star review. Thank you to those of you who have. And also, if you would hit subscribe, or if you are on iTunes, follow. And that way, every time we do a new one of these episodes, it will show up in your podcast feed every single time. And we appreciate all of you that have done that for us, too. This part of the show brought to you by our good friends over at Preborn. If you want to help them to save tens of thousands of more babies from the baby killers. And you guys have done that since we started this partnership between the Blaze and Preborn. Tens of thousands of babies have been saved by using the same kinds of methods of persuasion that are modeled in the scriptures. There must be, for true persuasion to occur, Not just you made me feel bad and I, reacted emotionally, or not just I'm patronizing you and just nodding my head so we can just move on and get to the part of the conversation I like, or just end it all together. And for true persuasion to happen, there must be a confrontation. There must be. I mean, otherwise, how would you persuade somebody off where they were? How would you persuade them off the decision they're making or contemplating? Off of the belief they have or are about to? You'd have to move them off that. That requires a confrontation. And so they confront at preborn too. Now, they kind of do it their own way, not necessarily the way I do it. That's okay. Just like I tell you guys all the time, love isn't a tone any more than confrontation is. When your wife says, going out with your buddies again tonight, huh? She might just say it like that. But if you've been married for more than 10 minutes, that's a confrontation. Okay? So they do that at preborn as well. They confront moms with the fact they're a mom and they're considering murdering their child. They confront them with the fact, no, you're a mom and that's a child. That's not a blob of tissue or an unviable mass of tissue. That's another person you're about to kill. And they do that with ultrasounds that still with Bidenflation only cost about $28 and have a decent chance of saving a life. And then what they also do then, when the mom, though, makes the decision, when she's confronted and responds to truth, now they come in with grace. And they are there for the mom. They understand that the mom and the child are both precious and both need help and assistance. They don't just say, hey, thanks for choosing life and go get them. A lot of times, this pre- and postnatal care can last for up to 2 years. All of that, everything, from the confrontation with the ultrasound to the counseling after the fact, is free of charge. They just need tax-deductible funding from people like us. If you'd like to make a donation today, go to preborn.com/Steve. Again, you can save lives, make an impact at preborn.com/Steve. All right, gentlemen, are you ready to continue on our series on Romans here for Theology Thursday?
Let's light it up.
Let's go.
All right, so we're in Romans 2 is where we left off. I want to go back to verse 11 in Romans 2. And I want to highlight that verse because I think before we get to the audience feedback, and we've got more time now that we're doing this for a full hour through Romans, I think we need to have a discussion about verse 11. Because I think it is absolutely, well, it's always paramount. It's the Word of God. But there's some eras and places in human history where some aspects of the Scripture are even more meaningful at that time and at that place. And I think verse 11 in chapter 2 is one of them for us. For God shows no partiality. Some of your translations may put it that God is no respecter of persons. For God shows no partiality. For God is no respecter of persons. Now, when we attempt to personify God, and what I mean by that is when we make him in our image, rather than we are made in his. Now, what does it mean to be made in something's image? You took a shower this morning, you got out. Brushed your hair, brushed your teeth, and at some point during that process, you probably looked into a what?
Mirror.
A mirror. You probably looked into a mirror at some point. Okay? And that's your reflection staring back at you. Is that reflection everything you are?
No.
Does that reflection show your body, soul, mind, and spirit simultaneously? No. Does it show every thought you're having at that moment? No. Does it display everything you're capable of at that moment? No. Will it show everything you have done, you are doing, or will do at that moment? No. It's a reflection of who you are. That's what it means for you and I to be made in the image of God. Moses writes, he created them male and female. I mean, that's a revolutionary statement, number one. Moses writing those books in the Pentateuch in Genesis, that's the first time in all of human history any purported holy book, holy writ, holy word offered women their own distinct creation story. That they weren't just kind of a throw-in or taken for granted or not accounted for at all. He created them male and female in his image. He created them, Moses writes. So what's it mean to be created in the image of God? We're supposed to reflect him back to the world. Now, we're the reflection now. We do not have the full capabilities of God. We don't have the full mind of God. We don't have the history, the present, and future that God transcends. We don't have those things. So just as your reflection is just a snapshot or a portrait and a limited one of who you are, that's what we are, being made in his image. And so right away, the idea that God shows no partiality by through Moses declaring women are made in my image as men are as well. In the era in which we live in, where now feminists can't figure out now if they want to become men or if they even, if I am woman, hear me roar even matters, this is an incredibly powerful statement. Particularly, you're writing this. When's Moses writing this? Probably 1600s BC, 1700 BC, 1400 BC, somewhere in that era, depending on what estimate you look at. We're at least 1,000 years. We're at least a millennia and a half before the birth of Christ when Moses is writing those words. And that's your first demonstration God shows no partiality. At least it would be to a human mind of that era. Whoa. Even women are made in the image of God. They're the lesser being to us as humans in that era. They are, again, by the way, you can thank your feminist for that. So right away you see what that means. That God is not a respecter of persons. That is a massive violation of ancient world social protocol, that statement alone. God does not care about our social protocols. So we have to make sure that we are not interpreting God and his word and his actions through who we think he is, but letting him tell us who we are and who he is. You see in the New Testament, for example, there's a line in the New Testament when they are discussing whether this carpenter from Nazareth preaching around Capernaum is Messiah or not. And there's a line in the New Testament that says, does anything good come from Nazareth? Or nothing good comes from Nazareth? Okay. What does that even mean? See, you're personifying God. You are projecting unto him who you think he is. And that he thinks like you think. Hey, yeah, nothing good comes out of the ghetto. Hey, nothing good comes out of redneck, county. So that clearly can't work. Well, God gives grace to the humble. His ways are not our ways. All of our attempts to emulate his righteousness are like filthy rags. And as many of you know, the translation for that is a bloody rag. As in on the rag. And that's Isaiah speaking to a Jewish audience. What's one substance, by the way, that the average Jew could not touch according to the law? Do you guys remember? Blood. Made someone unclean. And so that is God saying through the prophet Isaiah, all of your attempts to please me outside of my word, outside of my law, to do this in your own flesh, to do this in your own striving, to project what you think I want from where you're starting from, I'm way higher than where you are. Like, you trying to relate to a maggot only is like step one of the difference between you and me. And like the filthiest garments of your culture are your best attempt to get to where I'm at. All of us will fall guilty of this, even if we're trying not to. And the reason why is because character does matter, right? Integrity does matter, right? I mean, was there anything in Donald Trump's past that would indicate to you he would be the president to overturn Roe versus Wade, gentlemen? And I mean, literally anything at all.
No.
I mean, if someone would have came to us in 2016 and said, we think your show's wrong about not voting for Trump, I'm 100% convinced he's gonna overturn Roe versus Wade. I mean, what would we have done? We'd have spent a week laughing at that person. Are you kidding me? Get out of here. Probably even told them they were in a cult. Straight up, that's what we would have done. Straight up, Donald Trump did overturn Roe versus Wade. Now, that person may have made that pronouncement for all the wrong reasons. But again, God is not a respecter of persons. God shows no partiality. It's not like, God's up there saying, you know what, I was going to use this cretin named Trump to overturn Roe v. Wade. But then some rando caller to the Steve Deace Show called in to predict it. And it just seems so foolish. No, that's not how any of this works. He doesn't care. His ways are higher than our ways. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. Hey, let me take this kid born to this 15-year-old mom, all right, who raided his old man's porn collection like the rest of his buddies did, and brought his daughter home to his porn collection in his makeshift apartment. I'm going to take that dude, dropped out of college because he didn't go to a class for an entire semester, so they threw his sorry keister out of there. And yeah, I know right now he's 400 pounds too, but I'm going to take that dude right there and I'm going to put him on one of the largest platforms in the country so that in the year 2024, he's going to walk hundreds of thousands of people through Romans line by line, since most of my churches won't do it. Ta-da! Here I am. Okay, I've done nothing. I mean, I went to the same seminary almost all of you went to. None ya. All right? I mean, there's... So the trap we have is that we struggle to balance that, yeah, something good can come from Nazareth. Yeah, a complete and total degenerate like Samson can be one of the greatest judges Israel ever had, while simultaneously being a degenerate. That David can be a man after God's own heart while conspiring to have Bathsheba's husband murdered because he forced himself on her and impregnated her. Well, Steve, it doesn't say that he raped her. He's king. He calls a woman. Okay. Consent. First of all, she's a woman in that era, number one. Number two, he's royalty. Consent is your only option. So if that's your idea of consent, cool beans. Cool story, bro. There's lots of ways to force yourself on a woman that don't require a gag or rope. Use his position of authority to take advantage of her, to impose himself on her. Call that whatever you want. One of his sons rapes one of his daughters. He does nothing about it, and it nearly blows up his kingdom and causes a civil war. One of his other sons, who's infuriated about it, decides the way to get back at his dad is to go and get his brood of concubines or sex slaves and have sex with them out in the open on the roof so people know that this is happening. Because that would be a way of pointing out that, I completely defy my father's authority and his kingship, and I'm the king now. And yet, God looks at that king that committed those failures and says, that's my eternal kingdom. David. We struggle with the idea of balancing that God can work through us despite our weaknesses and work through others despite their even more obvious weaknesses, because we're all better at pointing out other people's weaknesses than our own, okay? That's one gift we all have, right? What's your spiritual gift? We all have the spiritual gift of seeing everybody else's weaknesses, all right? And so we struggle with how to balance that because character and integrity does matter. You know, we're not God. We can't shape events with our own sovereignty. We have very limited scope of making things happen on this earth while claiming that we have much more than we do. So integrity matters. Character matters. Theology matters. Faithfulness, obedience matters. And so we struggle with, all right, that person clearly is not emulating the right fruit in their life. So how could God use that person? We struggle with it because we're not transcendent. We're not holy. And we're not sovereign. God is holy. He is both immanent and transcendent. And he is ultimately sovereign. So this is not a struggle with him. And we can't begin to understand that. And that is why when he came in the flesh, he gave us a very, not easy, but simple standard. What makes it not easy is that we don't want to go with it. We want to look at these other things instead. Okay? But there's a very simple standard that the Lord gave us for knowing whether he was at work in and through someone's life or not, or our own or not. Whether this cause was just or not, whether this was the righteous movement or not. By their fruits you will know them. A good tree produces good fruit, a bad tree produces bad fruit, a bad tree cannot produce good fruit, and a good tree cannot produce bad fruit. And if God is producing good fruit through a person or a movement that we see there are obvious failings with, according to God's own standard, we tend to say that that can't be the case, or we kind of get jealous that these people are being used and we're not. That's our own sinfulness talking. We should be humble instead. We should look at that and think, man, I've got my own weaknesses, a long list. Maybe God can also, with more humility in my life, work through me. We like to say, well, God can work through problematic people. There are only problematic people. All have sinned. We're going to see this in the next chapter of Romans. All have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. That's Romans 3. There's only problematic people. And the differences are the problems in the problematic. But we're all problematic. The other issue, there's one more issue with this I want to address when it comes to not showing partiality. And I'll get to that here in a moment after a word from our friends at Patriot Mobile. For a decade, they've been on the cutting edge of America's parallel economy, which is still too slow in coming. But thankfully, one place where it is fully available to us is with our mobile phones. I've got my mobile phone right here with me at the Blaze Studios. Patriot Mobile is our mobile phone provider. They do a fantastic job for our family, an outstanding customer service team. Make the switch today. If you're a veteran or first responder and you want to make the switch, let them know. They'll say thank you for your service. And for the rest of us and all of us, you can use my name, Steve, as your promo code to get a free activation when you make the switch today to patriotmobile.com/Steve. Patriotmobile.com/Steve. You can keep your phone, upgrade your phone, keep your number, change your number, whatever you wish to do. Patriotmobile.com/Steve. You won't regret it, I promise. Patriotmobile.com/Steve is where you want to go. One of the things and this happens in a society where truth gets abandoned, because there has to be a standard, all right? And so when truth gets abandoned, and we're largely in a post-Christian epistemological nuclear winter in the West, moral subjectivism in those days, everyone did what was wise in their own eyes kind of thing, is where we are right now. And so when truth gets abandoned, when truth is prevalent in a culture, it will be, people will be, the society and the culture, the pressure point will be in moving people to that standard and holding them to that standard regardless of their demographic. I mean, if you would have found no one, like Frederick Douglass would not have written a note in the 1860s and said, hey, this sharecropper's kid murdered a bunch of people, but because of white privilege and being disadvantaged, he shouldn't be prosecuted. Would have never done that. Just would have never, no way, that just would have never happened. It happens today. Even though Frederick Douglass lived at a time when systemic and institutional racism actually existed and was the working framework of American governance. Because truth, even though we were still sinners, hence it was a more racist time, but truth was still the prevalent standard. And so the idea of people, regardless of your demographic identity, you have to be held to this standard. Okay? In this culture, that standard is now gone. And so we have become the standard. And now things are, even the way we analyze elections, I do it too. I have to. I have no choice. Well, how much, this demographic or that demographic, they get a vote, they get to show up. And so Joe Biden wants to say, hey, if you're too successful by the progressive tax system, we're going to punish you. That's unbiblical. Progressive taxation is unbiblical. God gave us a tax plan. Handed it to Old Testament Israel. Everybody pays 10%. Same rate. Now, 10% for Boaz is going to be a heck of a lot more money than 10% for the widow who's just got a mite. But everyone's paying 10%. Keep the thing rolling. Keep it going. Now, though, on the right, like Trump says, we're not going to tax tips anymore. Here's the problem with that. If you're the chef in the back of the restaurant, no one's tipping you. You're not rich either. If you're the chef at, pick a sit-down restaurant chain, Outback Steakhouse. If you're the chef at Outback Steakhouse, you're not getting any tips. You're also not making $100,000 a year. Okay, so so I'm the one making the meal. I get no tax cut for me, and the person out there that serves it, they get the tips eliminated. We're even pitting another group and trying to solve what progressive taxation does and pitting us against one another and punishing achievement. We're now doing the same thing, because at most restaurants, it is the chef who actually has a higher position than the server. But God says, I don't show any partiality. I'm not a respecter of persons. What ought to happen is the chef and the server ought to pay the exact same rate. Now, the chef's making more than the server, so he's going to pay more. But the rate's going to be the same. We're not going to pit these people against each other. They're both sinners. They're both working, and they're both working hard. And the worker's worth is higher. This idea that the elites are bad, they've done bad things, true. But therefore, if I oppose the elites as a populist, I'm good. Wrong. There's populists and elites in hell, tormented forever, right now, as we speak. Your group identity or association in any direction does not save you, does not redeem you, does not make you better than somebody else. God shows no partiality. God is not a respecter of persons. But since we've removed truth and we're a godless culture now, we are our own standard now, and so partiality is pretty much all that we have right now. And that's why this thing's getting further divisive, further bitter. Because if there's not a higher standard holding all of us equally accountable, then we are our own standard, and we're going to do it to one another and turn on one another. And one example of that is what you just saw last hour. Hey, you have different opinions than me. I'm suing you for defamation. What? For running for office? For writing a blog? Yeah. That's my standard. Gentlemen, your thoughts.
Aaron, can you do yours in less than 2 minutes? I'm not sure I can.
Well, yeah, briefly, partiality. It's mentioned multiple times in the Old Testament. Deuteronomy, appointing judges, don't judge with partiality. It's rife within the New Testament as well. For God, just kind of parenthetical information, multiple occasions. God doesn't show partiality. It's mentioned multiple times. James chapter 2, the sin of partiality. Why do you think it is that it's mentioned over and over again in the Bible, both Old and New Testament? Why do you think that is? I mean, I'd like to posit. I think it's because we're prone to partiality, as you just articulated.
Yeah.
And partiality, the sin of partiality, it takes place in ways that maybe go unnoticed, or maybe you wouldn't think of. It is rife not only as a principle within our political systems, it's rife within the American church. And I want to ask a very specific question about a very specific person. Russell Moore, wherever the hell he goes to church, wherever the heck he goes to church, I should say. If a guy walked in wearing a red hat and an FJB t-shirt on to his Sunday morning service, and he's sweaty, it looked like he just got off of working a shift at a place where they do manual labor, whatever. He walks into his shirt, and then he's followed by somebody who is obviously a dude pretending to be a woman. And that person is wearing a shirt that says some rainbow jihad, trans all the kids, something like that. Who do you think Russell Moore is going to actually be more prone to turn away?
Yep.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yep. That's an excellent example. Yeah. That you can't, it has to go both ways. And I mean, there's no seeker-sensitive church right now out there trying to reach Trump's cantankerous, cranky rural base.
Nope.
They're trying to reach the sophisticated. Okay, so that's showing partiality. The gospel's for everybody. More in a moment. All right, back here on the Steve Deace Show here on BlazeTV radio and podcast. I want to tell you about a company called Backyard Butchers. They're based from right here in Texas, where I am right now. They are dedicated to delivering the best deals in the market on high-quality beef, and it is very high quality. I've ate some of this stuff. It is really good. Your box will include all born and raised American beef from ranches right here in the heartland of America, delivering American-raised and harvested meat from ranch, farm to table, grass-fed, grain-finished. You can't beat it. And that's why they've got over 500,000 happy customers across the country and so many 5-star reviews online right now. If you want to take advantage of it, they got a great customer service team of stay-at-home moms. They will make sure your orders are delivered right and on time every single month. All right, so 20% off your first entire order. If you subscribe as well, you'll get an additional 10% off and free shipping when you go to backyardbutchers.com. That's backyardbutchers.com and then add the /Deace. Backyardbutchers.com/Deace. They've got several different combinations and options that you can choose from there. Backyardbutchers.com/Deace. All right, let's conclude what we were saying about partiality so we can get to some of the audience feedback on what we've done on Romans the last 4 weeks as well. Todd, I know you wanted to add to this. We're going to give you the last word. Go ahead.
Well, so I think the question remains, how do we protect against the pitfalls of partiality? Scott Hahn, like Aaron, goes to Deuteronomy when he talks of one way interpreting what that means. And Scott Hahn says, quote from Deuteronomy 10:17, accepts no bribes. I think that's really useful for how we protect, because it's a reasonable inference. We think about bribes. It's something you give from your excess, whether it's financial, from power, how you try to work the system from a place where you think you have advantage, where it's comfortable for you. And I think this takes us to Matthew 7, as what Steve and I know said out loud, and Aaron may have said the same, I'm just not recalling, one of the scariest portions of the Bible, both for saying the claim of God, the name of God, and for coming from the position of works. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, and those who do mighty works in your name. Lord, the response, I hardly knew ye. I think viewed through this prism of accepting no bribes, I think why does the Lord not know they? When they both say his name, have faith, and do works. And how can he come back on both fronts and say, I hardly knew you? I think it's because if you're always bribing, giving from your excess, from a place of comfort, when true relationship from God is ultimately codified, when you're seeking relationship with him, doing things in his name in your poverty, when it's hard, when it's not comfortable, the cross. I think that's really what this is all about. And that goes for, listen, there are things that for the three of us are easy to do in faith. I know Steve and I picking certain fights, not worried about being called names. That's easy. That is relatively easy for us. It's harder for others. People like Steve and us have to protect ourselves in our relationship with God. What are the things he demands of us that are harder for us, that we don't want to do? Because we could easily fall. Look, God, look. I'm bribing you. Look at all the things I've done. Yeah, I went to those school board meetings. Quite frankly, that was pretty easy for me. I did do it. I did do it in the name of God, but that wasn't hard for me as it would be for many other people. So that's, I think, really when it comes to being showing no partiality, we have got to make sure we are calling out God's name and doing works in his name as much as possible from a position of poverty. When we, as Steve said, Lord, I have nothing to offer from this perspective. I'm scared. I'm terrified. You didn't give me any gifts in this. Well, better up.
That's a great way to end it, because you just demonstrated another aspect of partiality where I am personification. I mean, where I'm sure God wants me to do the things that I'm naturally good at and comfortable with, and he does, and just wants me to stay, and he does. Yeah, but that's all he wants. Like he wants me to go to that school board meeting and fight for the kids, but the homeless guy out there on the sidewalk, and I'm supposed to step over him. That's kind of the opposite of what you were saying, Aaron. All right, mm-hmm. The Russell Moores would tell you, hey, go feed the homeless guy on the sidewalk and stay out of the school board meeting because parents don't belong there, and your kids should want to know what Drag Queen Storytime Hour is, right? Okay. The other side of that is, let me step over the homeless guy to make sure I go in there and get rid of Drag Queen Storytime Hour. No. Some of us are going to be really comfortable going in to confront Drag Queen Storytime Hour, and some of us have the makeup they're going to be really comfortable helping the homeless guy on the sidewalk. What God wants us to be is really comfortable doing both of those things, because both of those are mirror images of his nature. Both of them are. That's great. That's a great way to end it. All right, before we get to your feedback, a word about our friends over at Miracle Made. It's hot outside. It is right now in Texas. And your nighttime bedroom temperature has a huge impact on your sleep quality. All right, and that's where our friends at Miracle Made come in. They have these sheets inspired by NASA. They use silver-infused fabrics that are temperature regulating so you can sleep at the perfect temperature all night long. They're absolutely fantastic. You guys know how much I love my Miracle Made sheets. I missed them last night. Had to turn the AC down even lower without my Miracle Made sheets. It literally made a difference, man. I love these sheets. Luxuriously comfortable without the high price tag of other luxury brands, and they feel as nice, if not nicer, than some of the sheets used at some 5-star hotels. I'm at a really nice hotel the Blaze put me at. I just didn't have my Miracle Made sheets when it's 3,000 degrees outside. All right, so go to trymiracle.com/Deace. And get your Miracle Made sheets today. And whether you're buying them for yourself or a gift for a loved one, if you order today, you can save over 40%. And if you use our promo code DACE at checkout, you'll get 3 free towels and save an extra 20%. And Miracle is so confident in their product, it's backed by a 30-day money-back guarantee. So if you aren't 100% satisfied, you'll get a full refund. Upgrade your sleep now. That's trymiracle.com/DACE. Use the promo code DACE. Trymiracle.com/DACE. Use the promo code DACE. All right, a couple of pieces of feedback I want to make sure we get to. Now, I'm not sure why Joe asked this question and if it's a setup, but he just plainly asked this question. For each of you, who do you say that Paul was? I would just go by what Paul said he was. An apostle of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, we actually
called to preach and teach the gospel.
I was trying to think of the setup too because it's not even ambiguous. We actually read the passage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't understand this question.
Yeah.
I need more information.
Is this another way of is this a way of getting back to the cessationist arguments we had before?
Probably.
Because the cessationists would also agree that Paul was called to be an apostle. They would just say that he was the singular generation called to be such, part of that. And when people like him died, so did the ecclesiastical authority, right? That's what you guys would say, Aaron, right? Something like that. Okay, so I don't know any cessationists who are disavowing that Paul wasn't. No, let's not go the other way now. Okay, I struggle with hermeneutically with cessationism, but let's not miscategorize what it is either, if that's what we're doing here, because they're not saying that no one's ever been an apostle. They're just saying that no one else is. We had apostles, and there aren't any more.
Yeah.
Anything else on this?
No, I mean, we left in open but charitable disagreement. I didn't think anybody was trying to pull a fast one over on anybody. I mean, when I flat out asked you guys, so where does it say when this specifically ended, you guys were like, I honestly don't have, I'm not entirely sure. But none of it was in any sort of gotcha sense. I don't know what we could have done better or differently on this topic.
Yeah.
Now go ahead, Aaron. I'm sorry.
I wasn't really going to add much more. I need more information. Is there a specific angle? Who was Paul? I mean, are we talking about, he was Jewish as well, right? I don't know what angle we're going for here with this question.
There is another potential. I just thought of another potential angle, which is this whole red letter Christian thing. Now, again, I don't know if Joe's going from that vantage point, but let's go ahead and tackle that really quick. There's this idea. It's been propagated before, but where it's really become popular in our era is, if you're old enough, you might remember a group from the 90s called the Jesus Seminar. And with the Jesus Seminar, these are a bunch of all, John Dominic Crossan that you see in all these old, 90s, early 2000s Bible shows on History Channel where they basically try to debunk the Bible and retcon it. A bunch of these kinds of heretical, academics got together. I don't know who called them, why they felt like the call needed to be made, but they basically got together, had a conclave, and came out and made their own determination of what actually Jesus said in the Bible, and therefore what should be applied. And think if it's in red letters, Jesus definitely said it. If it's some other place. Now, this whole thing is a fallacy because if you're a Christian, you believe in the Trinity. And so like the God who speaks the world, the universe into existence is Jesus. The God who speaks to Moses, the burning bush, is Jesus. The God who tells the Israelites go into Canaan and urban renewal the place is Jesus. The God who who David sings Psalms about is Jesus. Okay, that's what you believe. All right, so the whole thing's a fallacy. Okay, but that created this modern craze known as red letter Christians. Okay, and they don't even go by their own red letters because they'll say things like, "Well, Jesus never addressed gender and homosexuality issues." When right there in red letters, have you not heard? Moses said he made them male and female. He made them and created them, and for this reason, a man shall leave his father and mother and cling to his wife, and the two will become one. He just says that out loud. Okay, so they don't even stand by their own standard. But since much of the New Testament's understanding of how a Christian, with Jesus having fulfilled the law on the cross, and so what are we still accountable to? And therefore, how are we to live morally and righteously in grace and in freedom without abusing it? How do we avoid becoming legalistic on one hand or antinomians on the other, which is just a fancy stained glass window term for I can live any way I want now since I'm saved? How do we avoid that? That's Paul, and to a lesser degree, Peter, are the ones who write those epistles addressing those dilemmas. And so these guys not so cleverly crafted a theology that said, ignore all the guys, the apostles, who wrote about how we are now to live, and just focus on these hippie red letter verses that we're not even going to actually focus on all the red verses, just the ones that line up with our socialistic biases. I think that's a possibility. That's another that's the other angle where this question has come up, is Paul's authority, whether because that would eliminate a lot of the New Testament if you removed the authority of Paul. Thoughts on that?
Yeah, and again, I don't know. My suspicion,
Aaron, you have a bemused look on your face.
My suspicion is this might. Does any have a gut instinct if this is even a Catholic or a Protestant asking the question?
No, it's just a guy. It's just a guy named Joe. I told you everything that was in there. Okay. There's no other information. So, Aaron, you have a bemused look on your face. Why?
It's just cut and dried. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ. He's an apostle, one who is sent. Okay? I don't know. When somebody asks questions with no context, there's an agenda, usually an agenda behind them, because they're trying to catch us up in our words. That's why I'm annoyed right now, because, there's a number of different angles that we could look at this from, but it's usually simple things are simple. This is simple to me. Paul is an apostle. Whether you're a cessationist or not, whatever theological bent you have, small o orthodox theological bent you have, you should be in agreement that Paul is an apostle. It starts and stops there. If he's anything other than that, we can have a different conversation, but you're probably talking about a different religion at that point.
All right. It's totally unfair of me to bring this up at the last minute, but I'm going to do it anyway because it's my show. And it's something we'll talk about later on when Paul himself will address this topic in this book of Romans. But David writes, I'm having a struggle of faith, and I'm seeking. But my problem is how through election God sends people to hell. To fully embrace this all-powerful God and undeserving humans, I have to believe that it is a lottery whether God elects me or not, and no matter what I do, can change it. There's more to his note, but I just want to stop right there. There aren't any undeserving humans. There aren't any undeserving humans. As we're going to see in the very next chapter. Before we get to the later chapters where Paul addresses foreknowledge and election and these kinds of things, before we get to that, the very next chapter, chapter 3, verse 23. For all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. You guys know what all means in Greek? The original Greek Paul was writing in. You guys know what that means? All. It means all. It means all. That's what it means. All means all. So there aren't any undeserving humans. There isn't anybody who has been able to keep God's standard, can, or frankly wants to. I mean, my wife and I have been Spirit-filled believers for 20 years. At the same time, I'm doing maybe the most important work of my career. At the same time, my wife is finishing her master's degree in order to become a Christian therapist. We came this close to blowing our entire marriage and family up. We intellectually knew that this was wrong. We intellectually knew that it was sinful. We knew. We let it almost get to the point of committing it anyway. And only by the grace of God would we not have. There aren't any undeserving people. There aren't. That doesn't mean there will not be good arguments against some hermeneutics of what election is and isn't when we get to those parts of Romans later on. But the one most people come with is the one that David did. The idea that anybody's deserving. No one deserves anything. God owes no one anything. He owes you nothing. And the beginning of receiving everything from God is the acknowledgement of that fact. You deserve nothing. You're owed nothing. You're a sinner. You violated God's grace. And frankly, praise him. If indeed election is a correct doctrine, praise him that he chose to save anybody, because he didn't have to do that. There aren't any undeserving people. There aren't. All right, we're going to stick around and do overtime. 3 non-political questions with Anastasia. I'll see you all tonight with the Blaze's debate coverage. Until tomorrow, noon to 2 Eastern, right after Glenn Beck. Romans 8:28.